of industrial organizational psychology. So we're going to be looking at personnel psychologists as well as organizational psychologists. So to start us off with industrial organizational psychology, this is the type of psychology that is working to help basically businesses do better with their employees. So industrial organizational is helping choose people as well as making sure that they're in their right environment. Now, personnel psychologists are going to be a subsection of industrial organizational, also known as IO psychology. So personnel psychologists are a subsection of IO psychology, and these are the people that help businesses choose employees and assess employees. So they're the ones out helping figure out, they're probably going to be working in the HR department, human resources, helping figuring out, okay, should we hire this person or this person? And then once we hire them, how do we actually assess their abilities and their performance? So the personnel psychologist will help ID individual strengths, and they will match them to work that fits their strengths. So for example, if you have somebody who is a very personable person, somebody who is very good at talking to just about anybody, is a very happy person, very good at relating to that, they will definitely go, and personnel psychologists will go and match them. For example, maybe they'll put them in a job like, for example, if they're a customer service representative, or maybe they're really good at talking to people into things, right? So maybe they're really good and put them in sales, okay? So they're going to match their strengths. This particular cartoon, it says, your personality test shows strong masochistic tendencies. Exactly what we're looking for in an employee. So I'm making the assumption based off the way the guy's dressed, he's probably like insecurity or something. Masochistic is if you're really into punishment and administering punishment. That's the kind of things that are there. So matching his strengths with the job. Interviewers, oftentimes within personnel psychology, they oftentimes have the interviewers oftentimes think that their judgment is best to determine who to hire. This is called that interviewer illusion. So you'll oftentimes have people that, managers and bosses that will say, oh no, I don't need that personnel psychologist to tell me how to interview people. I'm really good at assessing people. I'm a really good judge of character. Well, what they have to keep in mind is they have to remember, okay, this is the way they show up, right? So this is the way people are trained to go into a job interview. This guy's got, trimmed haircut, he's clean shaven, he's got a warm smile, he's feeling confident, he's got formal dress, he's got a firm handshake, he's got a good body posture there, right? He looks like a great guy to hire. I don't care what your business is, but do you know anything about his skills? Okay, what interviewers have to remember is that oftentimes they are judging a person based off from how they like the person and as well as their appearance, not necessarily on the skills. So that oftentimes also biases them towards, for example, people who are potentially obese. They don't necessarily come off as good. Now, unstructured interviews would be kind of going along with this interviewer illusion. People who have the interviewer illusion are going to have unstructured interviews. These are interviews where they ask you things like, so tell me about yourself. And they're just vague, open-ended questions that really aren't related to the job. And they do give clues as to somebody's personality, but they're really not good at determining if you're going to be good in the job. So in order to be able to determine if somebody's going to be good in the job, you need to have some more structured interviews. And structured interviews are going to be determining the people's actual strengths. And they will have questions about specific situations. I've been on a lot of interviews before, and I specifically remember one where I was interviewing for a technology assistant job. And it was a case where you would have individuals at the business that would be submitting work orders for problems they're having with their technology. So, my projector's not working, my laptop, needs this done to it. I can't save in Word, whatever, okay? The phones aren't working, okay? So this was the kind of job. So one of the questions to illustrate that it was a structured interview they had was they gave it to all of their applicants, and it's the same question, and they already know going in what their answer is that they're looking for. But they asked me, they said, okay, here's a list of 6 typical work orders that we would get. We want you to prioritize. Which one would you go do first, second, third? Okay, so I have to go and prioritize them, but then I also have to explain my priority levels. Why did I do this first, second, third? That would be an example of a structured interview because it's looking at how I would handle specific situations, and they apply the same question to every single applicant that comes in for that same job. So I have this question. It says, describe a situation where you showed amazing speed of thought and self-control in the face of persistent and irrelevant questioning. Sometimes you feel like that when you're being interviewed. All right, structured interviews are much better at predicting job performance. They obviously are going to highlight the people's strengths and weaknesses, and they're going to give you a better sense of how they will actually do on the job. Now, once they are on the job, you can actually have 360-degree feedback that will help eliminate bias in assessing performance. So we have 360-degree feedback at Chittard. 360-degree feedback, you're getting feedback from everybody, all sides. So for example, you get feedback from your boss. Okay, at Chittard, I am going and being observed by the administration. You get feedback from your customers. So for example, you guys are my customers, the students, and so at the end of the semester, you take that student evaluation survey. I'm being evaluated by my peers, so I could have other teachers that come in and observe me and give me feedback on, well, you know, I really like how you did this, but this area right over here you need to work on, right? As well as reports, self-reports. I can go and give myself feedback and, oh my gosh, that lesson went terrible. What was I thinking? All right, we need to restructure that. So 360-degree feedback is great because it gives you an idea of how everybody perceives you, and it will give you a more balanced idea of feedback and what you're doing. All right. The other type of psychologist within industrial organizational, so far we talked about personnel psychology, is organizational psychologists. And organizational psychologists look at the environment and how in management also influences workers' motivation and their productivity. So they're kind of looking at what's going on around them in that particular environment. So for example, I have this picture. Can you imagine if you're working in an office and all the walls were glass, they're all see-through? How would that work for you as far as productivity levels? You know, would you be more productive, less productive? I thought about putting a picture on there. I don't know if they used an organizational psychologist, but Google is famous for their environment of how they work at their job. And so they have what they call 20% time. So 20% of the time, their employees can work on whatever they want, whatever their hearts desire. And what they've found is that people are a lot more productive that way. Organizational psychologists would also look at and tell the business, like, okay, look at all of your employees. A lot of your employees are young employees. A lot of them have kids. Maybe they would suggest to them, hey, it might be a good idea to have a daycare here. You would have the parents that are going to be less worried about their kid if they're right on site. Organizational psychologists will also look at the achievement motivation of people, and this is people's desire for the sense of accomplishment and mastery of skills. This is kind of that intrinsic motivation. Albert Einstein said, if you want to live a happy life, tie it to a goal, not to people or objects, but tie it to a goal. This is the idea that they want everybody to have some sort of intrinsic motivation of what's going on. So that's, they're trying to, have some sort of sense of achievement and accomplishment. Organizational psychologists will also look at how satisfaction at work also helps satisfaction with your life, and it can help your overall performance at work. So the happier you are at work, the better it's going to be. So this is the top 5 factors that impact job satisfaction. So the work-life balance is a big one. That's 50% of people say that, and I'm assuming because somebody well, no, it does not add to 100. I'm assuming they can vote for more than one. And then opportunity to do great design. So being able to be creative and think outside the box. Sense of accomplishment, and salary and benefits package. That's actually tied. Notice that the salary and how much you actually get paid is not the number one thing that impacts job satisfaction. People aren't satisfied with their job because how they get paid. Okay, so keep in mind that when you have that balance, it does help. All right, lastly, I want to talk about how your manager can influence you. So you all have probably had a job before, at the very least a small summer job, and you probably know that how the manager believes you are and their beliefs about their employees affect how they assess their performance. And so if managers think that you are the way you are and there's no way that they can get you to change, okay, they are going to be a lot harsher on your assessments, and they're in assessing your performance and saying, oh, well, they're just lazy. There's nothing I can do to, fix that and change that. Whereas somebody who has a much more fluid definition of their employees' traits and say, well, people can change. Who knows? They will be much easier critic of your performance, because they can go and say, hey, I think you need to work on this. And they'll be much easier to talk about that. So looking at how they believe you will actually perform and whether or not you can change. And the last thing that I wanted to mention is leadership style. So leadership style can vary from task leadership, which is where you're setting specific standards for an organization. You're having specific standards and you're going to organize the project, to social leadership and being able to explain decisions, being able to work out conflicts with people. Good leaders are going to have both. So, for example, this would be task leadership. The ants here, you might have one ant that's in charge that's telling everybody what to do. And it's important because otherwise they're just not going to get their little bridge across their cliff here. Okay? However, for example, social leadership, this lady is kind of showing the connectivity between all of her employees, between her employees and her customers. And so social leadership is going to being able to talk to people. So if you're a good, successful leader, you will have both task leadership and social leadership. And so you'll be able to not only organize the project, but also be able to explain your decision and work out any conflicts with people and be able to trust people to take it to whatever their level is. All right, that's it for notes. Let me know if you have any questions.